Hey folks, welcome back. Today we have a pretty interesting topic I want to talk about. I'm sure that we've all heard, I know I have, about the recent power outages in Europe. Um, Not only did people lose electricity, but I also read online that the municipal water systems went down. So today I just want to talk about water and specifically water filtration. And there's lots of different forms of water filtration. So my suggestion would be to kind of figure out what works best in your situation or what meets your needs as far as water goes, because you can go pretty simple. And I brought a few examples here that I have that I use personally. This is pretty simple. This is just a Sawyer Mini. It comes with the plunger. It's a kit you get. They're about $25. You can get them at Walmart. You can get them at Amazon. They're reasonably affordable. They're very plentiful. I think the blue one is less filtration as far as the amount of gallons as the red one. They make two. One's blue, one's red. I don't remember the details. But the nice thing about this is when you get the full kit, which this is not the full kit. I do have the full kit in another bag. It comes with a pouch that you would fill with water and then screw the filter on. You squeeze the pouch. It comes out the end here into a water bottle, or squirt it right into your mouth if you choose. But the threading on this does fit onto a standard water bottle, as well as onto that pouch that it comes with. And there's a company called CNOC, I believe, that makes a better quality pouch or bag. Much easier to fill. I've seen the reviews online. I personally don't have one, but I would like to get one because they do look considerably easier to use than the standard pouch that comes with the Sawyer. But for now, in my situation where I do use this is mainly for backpacking that I use this for. I bring two bottles. When I do need to filter water, I have one bottle for dirty water and then one bottle for clean water. So I collect with one, screw this on, squirt it into the other bottle. And the downside to that is now I only have one bottle of drinkable water as opposed to two, unless I take the bag where I could fill the bag and fill both bottles. But when I'm backpacking, I'm trying to save weight. So I minimize it by only taking just this. The plunger is just in case it clogs or something, I can back flush it. I've never had to use the plunger because I don't filter enough water to wear these out. Generally, my hikes are short enough to where the 2 liters of water that I carry is enough. When I have longer trips, such as this year, that I have some longer trips planned, I will have to use the bag or get one of those CNOC bags. I haven't decided which direction I'm going to go in yet. But this is one form of water filtration, and I just got these. This is another form of water filtration. This was a 4-pack that I got for, I think it was about $25. I'd have to look. I'll put a link in the description that I got this on Amazon. The brand I never heard of, but it is basically like a life straw. It's a little bit bigger than a life straw. You can put this end in water, any stream or creek or whatever, or lake, and drink right out of the tube. This doesn't have the small end for hooking a hose, like for a hydration bladder. In your backpack, you can put these in line for that. This doesn't have that capability. But what I liked about this one versus the Life Straw brand was this has the proper fitting on the end for specifically screwing onto a water bottle. So ultimately this does the same job as this, but it's not as efficient to squirt, but I could literally fill up a bottle and drink right from the dirty water bottle as opposed to having a dirty bottle and a clean bottle in my pack. So I think this was a good score. I got a bunch of them. It came in a 4-pack. I believe that the specifications, which I'm going to have to double check it because it surprised me considerably. I believe it said that it filters 30,000 gallons. I don't know if I would believe that until I put that much water through it. Because that's a lot of water for this little filter without actually back flushing it. But those are the claims that it makes. You can look at them, look them up on Amazon. I'll put a link in the description to the exact one that I purchased. This one here, the brand is called Yuclet, Yuclet water filter. And it came in a 4-pack, and it was about the same price as a Life Straw. But like I said, it had that attachment at the top that I kind of liked better than a Life Straw. Now this, which I've only used this one time, and I used it just to test it, just to see if it worked. This was one of the coolest ideas that I ever saw, and I bought this years and years and years ago at a like a supply store, and it comes with a carry bag, and it comes with some extra filters and fittings and some hose. And basically what this does is you connect hoses, one here and one here, and you put one hose, the lower one, down into your water source. And it pumps both ways, up and down, so you can get a pretty steady water flow out of here. Now this, I believe, it does have changeable filters inside. It does come apart, and you can change the filters inside and clean them. That's why it came with extra filters. But basically, you just pump, and you can pump dirty water through the filter into a bottle and become clean water. Oh, never noticed it's got a compass on the top, little button compass. That's kind of cool. But I did use this once just to test it out on a camping trip where it wasn't necessary. I was at a campground where I had access to potable water. But when I got this, I took it with me just to test it out because I think I only paid about $30 or $40 for this. They probably still make something similar to it. It does have a barcode on the bottom. I can try to research where I got this. And if there's anything like this available on the market now, but I think it's a really good idea in concept. But like I said, I never used it for any extended period of time. All I did was test it just to see if it actually worked. I don't know what the quality of this is or where it was made. It was probably made in China. So as far as the quality goes and how long it would last, I know it's cleanable and it has replacement filters. So as far as the amount of gallons of water that it will, the brand name is Camp Temp. So I'll have to look at that up. I'll have to look it up, and I'll try to put a description in the, or put some information on this in the description in case anybody wants to kind of look at this concept as an option for filtering water. I got this before I had these, and obviously before these because I just got these yesterday. But I've been using Sawyer's for years now. And before I started using Sawyer, I didn't really have a way to filter water. I would just collect it and boil it and then let it cool and dump it in my bottles. And that was how I purified. I poured it through a bandana to strain it so it didn't get all of the turbidity or the particles in it out. And then I picked this up thinking, this was going to be a godsend. But I never actually had the chance to use it. Other than just take it with me and test it. But this is a good thing to have. If the water system should go out, or municipal water is down, and you have no way to get clean water, I would suggest having multiple methods for filtering water to be drinkable. Having cases of bottled water is great, but it's only going to last so long. So, having a way to filter water, whether you're, at home and the power's out, or you're out on a trip and you don't have any water with you, you need to filter some water. Those are some great options. Now, as far as what I was talking about with the power outages in Europe and the municipal water actually going down, I and a lot of people have a system set up in my house. I have two actually. I have a hand pump on my well because I'm not on municipal water. I'm on a well. So when I lose electricity and plug my generator, which is gas powered, I kind of prioritize what I want to run when the power's out, because the generator will run everything, but it really drinks a lot of gas doing it. The more load you put on a generator, the more fuel it's going to use. A generator with nothing plugged into it that's just sitting there idling is going to run longer on a tank of fuel than if you load it up and put your whole house draw on it. It's just, it really drinks a lot of fuel. So when the power goes out, I try to put as little as I can on the generator just to extend my fuel, because gas, I only have so much gas on hand. So and I don't have backup solar or anything like that. I just have a gas generator. It will run my central air and my well and my refrigerators and my freezers. It's a big enough generator to where it will run the whole house. But when I run the whole house, a tank of fuel in the generator gets me 6 to 7 hours, depending on how hard the HVAC system has to run. If it's extremely cold out, it's going to run a lot, or if it's extremely hot out, it's going to run a lot, which puts a bigger draw on the generator. So in an extended situation where the power's out and I'm uncertain, because normally when the power goes out, you can use your cell phone to call or check online, because your phone still works because the battery's charged. I can check online with the local power company, and they'll give you an estimated amount of time that the power goes out. If a storm goes through and your power goes out, you can go into their website and it'll say, estimated outage will last 5 hours. So that kind of tells me, all right, I'm good. But if they don't have an answer, or if that's not available, then I got to start thinking long term, whether that long term would be 2 to 3 days or 2 to 3 weeks. Obviously, my refrigerators and my freezers are going to be my priority, because losing those would cost a lot. That would be a big loss to lose both refrigerators and all of the freezers with the food that I had stored. So just running the freezers off the generator and maybe a few lights in the house for necessity would be about it. I would open the windows and, deal with the temperatures. Unless it was frigid cold out, I would use the fireplace or a secondary heater, which I do have. But again, fuel only lasts so long. So if there's a situation where the outage, there's no estimated time that the power is going to come back on, which I'm pretty sure in both Spain and Portugal, they were unable. I think Portugal, I believe, said it would be back on in 10 hours, but I don't think Spain had an estimate, or maybe it was vice versa. But in a situation where there's no estimated time that the power is going to come back on, you have to start thinking long term. You have to think, what if this lasts 2, 3, 4, 5 days? How am I going to stretch this to where I don't lose everything in my freezer, or I don't freeze to death or something? So as far as my water goes, I have a hand pump, which Jason from On3 is the name of his channel. His name is Jason, I believe. He did a whole video where he put a hand pump on his well system to where when his power goes out, he can literally hand crank the water out of his well into his house and make his water work. And I thought that was a phenomenal idea, so I did the same thing. I fortunately don't have a very deep well, so I didn't need as big of a pump as he had to use, but I still have a hand pump on my well to where if the power goes out, I can pump water directly from the well. Now, before that, I set up a rain collection system. And that brings me to this box, because I learned a hard lesson doing this. Basically, the water hits the roof, it goes into the rain gutters, it goes down the downspouts, and I have one of these gizmos, which I had to buy another set because I didn't realize when I installed these that they're permanent. you have to cut your downspout to install this. And this is basically a valve. If you see how it works here, you screw this and it'll close this valve and redirect the water here when you need to collect the rainwater. When you don't, you raise this up and it just goes straight down as normal, you know, through your downspout and out into your yard or your drainage system or whatever. But to test it, I actually cut my downspout to put this in to make sure it worked, and then realized, oh, I cut the downspout. I can't take this thing out now. And I don't know how long it's going to last outside, you know, in the sun, in the cold. You know, this is just plastic, this valve. So I went ahead and ordered another set just so I would have them just in case the ones that are out there crapped out on me. Because it could happen that they could crap out on me. So and it was good to be able to show you. Basically what I did is I installed these in my downspouts, and I used a 1 inch flexible line, which is not installed, but I have it all ready to go. This is installed, and then I put a piece of 2-inch PVC through my foundation into my basement. It's actually in that room right there, but it's up high, about the height of that window, and it's all sealed up and got caps on it. On the inside, it's capped off, and then it has a valve that flows down into a splitter that sends it into 6 lines, because I have 6 55-gallon food grade drums that it all goes to. So when it rains, I can open up all the valves and simultaneously fill all 6 drums. And then I have a hand pump that sits down in the drum and screws onto the spout in the drum to where I can hand pump the water out of the drum. Now, I know what you're going to say. Be careful, because coming off of a roof puts acetone in the water, and I am fully aware of that. I wasn't aware of that when I built the system. The system is not active right now. It's in, part of it's installed and the rest of it is in storage, which I have part of it here. So when I need it, I just have to pop a couple of caps, hook up a fitting, and open those valves on the downspouts, and it'll direct the water, you know, into the collection system. But I have no reason to collect water in my basement right now because the power's on and my water works. But in a situation where I would need, in an extended situation where I would need to implement my rainwater collection system, it's all ready to go. I have all the parts. All I have to do is put a few things together and open some valves, and it works. Which the acetone issue, which here's my solution to that. This is a food grade 5-gallon bucket. I believe I got this from Home Depot. It's a standard Home Depot lid. I think the bucket was about $8, and you know, part of the collection system is in here because I try to keep all the parts together so I know where everything's at. But real quick, I got all this at Home Depot. I don't remember what it's all called, but if you search around the plumbing section, you can find this valve setup that, you know, you drill a hole in the bucket and screw the two together, one on the inside, one on the outside. It has a gasket to keep it from leaking, and then it has a valve that opens up, and there's actually water in it from when I tested it, which I thought I got all the water out of it. But I tested it to make sure it didn't leak. So I don't have a rag here, so we'll just have to be careful with that. But inside the bucket, I have ready to go activated charcoal, non-bleached cotton batting, and there's some gravel down in there. I don't know if you can see that, but there's some gravel down there. I believe it's number 3 construction entrance stone. I got it from work, threw it in a bucket, came home, washed it real good, stuck it down in there. Out in my shed, I keep some pea gravel in a bag, and then sand in a bag. And that's basically how you put this together. It has to be done in layers. You use your cotton, which filters out the majority of your particles, and then your activated carbon or activated charcoal, which I got this off Amazon, this bag. It was probably about 20 or 30 bucks. It's probably in my Amazon history. I can put that in the description if it's necessary, but you can get this stuff in a lot of places. Any pet store that sells fish tank supplies, you can get it at. It's just, activated carbon for fish ponds or fish tanks, but it all does the same thing. In fact, there's even a couple of videos floating around where there's some guys that show you how to make this, which is pretty cool. I watched a couple of those videos. I opted to just buy it and not make it, but in a pinch, you can make your own activated carbon, but it was easier just to buy it. It came in a net bag. The bag is kind of like a netting. It's not even open yet because I've never used this. I keep it sealed, but as you can see, it's like a netting to where I can just lay it down in there, and from my 55-gallon drums in here, I have a little stool stand that I can put in there, put this on top of. This fitting is the same as a garden hose. So I can hook a short piece of garden hose on and I can fill something, or, put a bucket or something directly underneath of it. I have a hand pump for the 55-gallon drum, and I can just sit this next to the drum, hand pump the water out of the drum into this homemade filter, and clean, potable water will come out this end. In fact, here's the hose that I have, and this was just it's just a garden hose. This, I believe, was a washing machine hose that I picked up at a hardware store or something, and it works perfectly for this. I leave it in there, and this stuff all stays together up in the garage attic. I have an attic above my garage, and that's where I went up there and got this, specifically for this video. So I could show you, there's a book out there which I didn't bring down with me. It's upstairs in the office. You've seen the commercial, the old guy that talks about the old ways with the pemmican and all the ways the frontiersmen did it and how they survived. I have that book. It was given to me for Christmas a couple of years ago, and it's full of great information. And in that book is where I found the process for making the filter. Now, he made his own activated carbon, and instead of using cotton batting, he used some sort of grass clippings or something. But you can YouTube it and get the idea of what you can purchase as a replacement for what he's calling for in that book to build this filter. And I really couldn't guess how many gallons of water that this would filter. It's 5-gallon bucket. There's 10 pounds of activated carbon. It would probably filter thousands and thousands and thousands of gallons, if I had to guess. And I keep a few of these around empty. I have some replaceable tops that I can take. This one, this is the original top. It's already been, opened and used. I have a couple of these that are empty. Now, I'll admit, even though I'm on a well, my water is perfectly fine to drink, but we get water delivered here every month. There's a company that brings these. I have a water cooler in the kitchen that, you put this in upside down, and at the top, you know how they work. You see them at people's offices. And then it has the two spigots, one's for cold, one's for hot. The one that I have, I'll have to look at the brand name because I'm not sure if they all do it. But the one that I have, I specifically bought because when it's plugged in, one side is cold water, one side is hot water. And that's great. It's very convenient. But when you unplug it, it doesn't make hot or cold, but both spigots still work. You just pull the knob and water comes out. It's room temperature water. So ultimately, I could collect my rainwater into my drums, pump it through my 5-gallon bucket filter into a water bottle, put it upstairs in the kitchen in the water cooler, and then have potable water easily accessible that I don't have to constantly pump or filter water just to get a glass of water or something for one of my kids. So, I found that set up. It took me a little while to put it all together, but I found that it was pretty convenient. We've never had power outage here that lasted long enough for me to implement all that for any great length of time, but I did test it all to make sure none of my plumbing fittings leaked when I put the system in, to make sure it did do. Now, it didn't rain very much, so I didn't get a whole lot of water coming down through the valve on the downspout and into, but it did work. I stuck the garden hose in there and then let it run and came in here and checked it, and it filled all 6 barrels. I didn't fill them all the way up. I just put a little water in it to make sure the system worked, and then I used the pump. I bought it off. I think I got it at O-Line. Yeah, I'll put a link to it. I got it off a company that does like business supplies, stuff like that. I forget the name of it. I think they're up in Philadelphia. Their shipping to me is extremely fast, like literally the next day. Whenever I order something, it shows up UPS the next day. That's how close they are. I want to say it's O-Line or something. I don't remember. But I'll put that link also in the description. So if you want to get, if you want to use a 5-gallon or 55-gallon drum or something larger capacity, you got to remember you have to be able to get the water out of there efficiently without power. So having a hand pump, one of those ones that's made for a 55-gallon drum, it's just convenient. It slides down in there, you screw it to attach it, and then you just pump it, and water comes out. It's the greatest thing. So that about does it. I would definitely recommend some redundancy because remember, 2 is 1 and 1 is none when it comes to potable water and actually getting it. Because if you let's stop for a second. We heard about the power outage in Europe, and what can we take from that? If you watch, transportation shut down, municipal water was off, electricity was off. What's the first thing, whether you're in Europe or the good old US of A, what's the first thing people do? They react. They go into panic mode and they race out to the store and they get bottled water and food and everything that they technically should have already, or at least some of that stuff. But for some reason, there's a lot of people out there that don't prepare, that don't put themselves in a better position to not have to be reactive because they've been proactive along the way. And I try to be proactive to where I don't have to race out to the store when the power goes out because I need water or I need food or I need, whatever else that people need during those, times. If God forbid there's ever a shit hit the fan or an SHTF or apocalyptic situation, there's going to be a lot of people in trouble because the stores are going to run out quick. We see it on the news. Shelves get emptied in less than a day. What are people going to do at day 3, day 5? If they had nothing at their house and they had to race out to the store for whatever cases of bottled water or cans of green beans that they could get their hands on, what's going to happen to people on day 3, day 5, day 10, day 30? Those of us in the preparedness community, the preppers, we think more proactively. We see that we don't want to be that guy or that girl that runs out to the store trying to scavenge water or toilet paper or green beans or we put a little bit back. Every time we go to the store or every time we go shopping, we get an extra thing or an extra 2 things and you put it back for emergencies. And that's just something that a lot of us do. And I think everyone should do that. I was raised to do that. I spent a lot of time with my grandparents growing up and they always were prepared. There was always plenty of food in the pantry. They had a garden, so they canned a lot of their own vegetables. They had a big chest freezer in the basement. My grandfather bought a beef from a butcher or a farm, whatever, I don't know. But he would get a half a side of beef once a year, and it would just be packed. And chicken he would buy by the 40-pound case. He'd get 6 or 8 cases of it. And, their weekly trip to the grocery store was for simple stuff like bread, because, grandma didn't want to spend the time making bread. She knew how to make bread, but it was easier to run to the store and buy a loaf of Blue Ribbon, just like most of us do. Condiments, mayonnaise, ketchup. Yes, grandma and grandpa, they knew how to make that stuff, but they chose not to because it was more convenient to buy it from the store. So they did do shopping, weekly or monthly, or actually my grandmother was the type to like to go to the store just to get out of the house every day. That was like her thing. She loved to go out and just, but anyway, that generation kind of taught my generation to put things back and not be reactive in a situation, to be proactive to a situation. So I hope that helps people, and I hope you learned something. Remember, redundancy is key. Having more than one way to, and these aren't the only ways. These are just the ones that I have. If you watch other YouTube channels, there's a bunch of guys out there with a ton of different ways to filter and make water potable, so where you can drink it and it doesn't make you sick. And you can choose any of these ways, but I would suggest you choose one of them or two of them, because redundancy is key. Remember, 2 is 1, 1 is none. So you have to have multiple ways, even if it's something as simple as a bunch of Sawyers or a bunch of Life straws, in a closet somewhere. At least it's better than nothing. So with that, I hope it helps, and we'll see you next time.